the smoking section with Steve Helfer, and welcome. Of course, anybody who wants to call, I graciously invite you. Jim sometimes calls, and we always appreciate his calls. And I think this is maybe the first show that I've had since Thanksgiving, although it may be the second. But I hope everyone had a good celebration with family and friends, or with neighbors, or with anybody. You know, I think it's always important at Thanksgiving and these family holidays, of course, not to talk politics or religion. That's an old saw, but I think it's very accurate. And I think, you know, I think in these days when everybody's hyper politicized, that sometimes we can't think of anything other things to say other than politics, and of course that's kind of a shame. Of course, you know, in my case, it always leads to tobacco policy. But then again, that is the nature of the show, and so we stick to tobacco policy here. And I did have a guest tonight. Unfortunately, he was unable to make it, and but I look forward to next week because I may have another guest who I hope will make it. But on our Facebook page, we did get that's Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights. We did get a comment whereby the commenter was saying that these advertisements that the tobacco industry has been forced to put up in, I think, at least 50 newspapers or so, is really letting the tobacco companies off the hook for putting out a product that is unhealthy, according to this commentator, and for deceiving the public. And, you know, I think this idea that the tobacco companies somehow deceive the American public, people say they deceive the public, but I don't think it's factual at all, because I outlined this in a comment I made, and I take this to a large extent from a column in the New York Times that had to have been about, I guess it's maybe 20 years ago, by a really well-known and well-respected columnist by the name of Russell Baker, who has long since retired. I'm not even sure he's still alive, but he talked about the absurdity of the contention which is made by anti-smoking activists that the tobacco companies deceived the American public, and that this is a sin for which they are guilty. And it just, for one thing, tobacco advertisements have not been on radio or television since 1971. And that's an interesting question. I'm not sure that they're banned. People say that they're banned, but even I, who has devoted a great deal of time to this issue, is not perfectly sure they're banned. It might be a voluntary act on the part of tobacco companies. So if tobacco companies have been at work deceiving the public, where have they been doing it? Because they certainly were not denying what the anti-smoking activists were saying on television or on radio. So where would they be doing this? And in newspapers, have they been taking out advertisements, or on billboards? We don't see billboards. Many newspapers stopped taking tobacco company advertisements. So if the tobacco companies for the last, let's say, 40 years or 50 years as it is now, have been denying or even questioning in the mass media the contentions of anti-smokers, they haven't been doing it. I don't know where they have been doing it. So if they are accused of doing this, where is it supposedly they're doing this? And anybody out there who is watching this show, if he or she can come up with a specific instance where the tobacco companies have said, well, this is not true or that is not true, I would defy anybody to come up with that, because I don't think you will. So this whole idea that tobacco companies have been actively denying the things of which they are accused is not true in my estimation. But to go back to this Russell Baker column, the idea that, again, that the American public was somehow deceived. Now, there has been a perception that tobacco has been harmful going back to the 1930s at least, when Russell Baker pointed out that cigarettes were called coffin nails. Also, there was a very, very famous song that kind of brought into sharp focus the fact that most American people felt that if you started smoking, it was very difficult to give up. I mean, this goes back to Mark Twain, who jestingly said that he thought that giving up smoking was easy, that he had done it 1,000 times. So the idea that smoking was harmful, the perception that it was harmful and very difficult to give up, goes back to the at least until the 19th century here in the United States. The idea that smoking was coffin nails goes back at least until the 1930s, when Russell Baker said that he himself started smoking. And then there was this famous song that I think was done by Tex Ritter before, and I am pretty sure it came out before World War II, called "Smoke, Smoke, Smoke That Cigarette." And at the very end, the smoker is at the gates of heaven, and he says to St. Peter, well, you gotta wait a minute, because I have to smoke this other cigarette. I can't come until I smoke this cigarette. So this idea that the American public was fooled for some reason for the last 50 years, or the American government had a perception that cigarettes weren't harmful, and I'm not saying they are harmful. I am simply saying that the perception has been there for as long as tobacco has been around, certainly in the last 100 years. So in 1964, the Surgeon General released a report condemning tobacco, at least in terms of lung cancer, and this report in 1964 got a huge amount of publicity. I mean, it was on the front page of every newspaper, it was on television, it was all over the radio. So there isn't an American who was alive in 1964 who was over the age of 12 who didn't hear about this momentous report that was released by the Surgeon General in 1964. And then I believe warnings have been put on cigarette labels since 1965. That is 52 years ago. 1971, the tobacco stopped being advertised on television and radio. And then, of course, in the late 80s, and that's almost 30 years ago, we had the secondhand smoke scare that was promulgated by anti-smokers with very little evidence. One of their crucial studies was done by the EPA in 1992, and it was thrown out by a judge because it was very obvious that the EPA was breaking a lot of scientific conventions, was committed to a an answer before they had even done the study. And even if, as Michael McFadden so aptly points out, that even after jiggling the stats and other things, the EPA came up with that the risk that is associated with secondhand smoke exposure over a 30 or 40-year period, if you are living with a smoker, as Michael McFadden so aptly points out, the risk is so small that for anything else it would be considered no risk whatsoever. But because of the politics surrounding smoking and secondhand smoke, it was considered somehow confirming that there was a risk. And when you look at it, the risk is so small, it's almost non-existent. So that actually the study that was touted in the press and elsewhere as confirming a risk associated with secondhand smoke really didn't come up with the risk even after they jiggled all of the scientific methods to come up with this. And then of course you have all these restrictions and so forth that have been going on for 35 years. So this idea that, and this accusation that the tobacco companies deceived the American public and the government, which I believe is crucial to this lawsuit brought by the Clinton Justice Department and decided by a Clinton-appointed attorney to these ads that are being put on television. And then there was another watershed moment, I think in 1994, when the CEOs of a number of tobacco companies testified in front of Congress in kind of Harry Waxman, which was the most grandstanding I've ever seen a politician using, really bullying private citizens and using this when they testified that they thought tobacco or nicotine or both, tobacco I guess, was non-addictive, and they were really called to the carpet. Everybody thought this was terrible, but there are so many Americans who quit smoking. According to the Surgeon General, in a 20-year period beginning in 1970 to 1990, 40 million Americans quit smoking. 90% of them did it without any kind of professional help or any kind of nicotine replacement therapy, what have you. So, is that really addictive? Plus, the withdrawal symptoms from smoking cigarettes are like 2 or 3 days of irritability, lack of being unable to concentration, nothing like withdrawing from alcohol or withdrawing from heroin, or even for that matter, withdrawing from coffee. People get really bad headaches and stuff. So, and now of course the term addiction is used for everything. In 1994, which of course now is 23 years ago, addiction still was a somewhat limited term. Now of course addiction is applied to the internet, to gambling, to sex, to food. Supposedly fatty food is as addictive as cocaine or heroin. The word has lost any real meaning. And so that was kind of a watershed, but all of these things I think are very important, because this idea that somehow the tobacco companies kept some kind of information from the public and from the government, and that they deceived the government and the public, is poppycock. The tobacco companies were not the only people studying tobacco. Tobacco has probably been the most studied plant in the whole, of any plant in the world, and many of those people who studied the plant, etc., were really pretty anti-smoking and had nothing to do with the tobacco companies, and came up with all kinds of terrible things that they said tobacco caused. So, this idea that tobacco companies were privy to something that the rest of the research community was not. Again, so many things that are said by the anti-smoking activists, if one deconstructs them, looks at them dispassionately, looks at them carefully, they do not hold water. Well, I think now, oh, we have a phone call, great. Oh, but is the, okay, let's see if I can figure out how to do this. Okay, you're on the smoking section. Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
If I get an echo,
Yes, is this,
are you there?
Jim, have you turned off your television? I think that might be part of the problem.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, you know what it is, Steve? I'm sorry. You know what it was?
No,
Are you still getting an echo?
no, it sounds much better now.
Oh, okay, yeah, because my TV, I have it hooked up to my stereo. So I muted it, but I didn't turn the
Oh, I see.
stereo down.
I
But
see.
anyway,
Yes,
Andy Griffith, right?
Yes.
In the Andy Griffith show,
I remember
way
it.
back,
Yeah.
he spoke. He spoke in the show.
Did he really?
Yeah, he spoke in the show. And he died of 86. He died at the age of 86.
He just died
He
recently.
smoked continuously throughout his life, but I saw him in his show smoke a lot. He
Well-
smoked a lot.
Well, I have to study that because I'm writing a book where I have all of these people who smoke and live to very advanced age, mostly, and so that will be very good for me. I want to take a look at that. I mean,
Yeah, he had a heart attack. He didn't die of lung cancer or anything.
at 86, though, he just
At 86, he lived to 2012. He died.
is that right? He died 5 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you ever
2012. He died at the age of 86.
do you ever watch?
I definitely he inhaled and everything on the show.
He what?
Huh?
I didn't hear what you said the last thing.
Yeah, he inhaled it,
Huh,
so he
okay.
really did smoke.
But you know, the show is on television a lot these days. You know, the Andy Griffith Show.
Yeah, it's on channel 942 at 8 o'clock.
Do you?
Channel 942.
I'm going to have to start checking it out a little
at
bit
8
more.
o'clock.
I'm going to have to start checking. Well, you know, there was a big show on television about Leonard Nimoy, because Leonard Nimoy was a very heavy smoker, and then he gave up smoking, and 30 years later he got COPD, and they blame it on smoking. But
They said that's what I have too.
that you have COPD?
Yeah. But if I inhale a cigar once in a while, like
Yes,
just like 1 or 2 puffs
right,
out of a whole cigar, I'll inhale.
yeah,
Now, if I do that too much, I get winded,
yeah.
you know. But if I just smoke the cigar and not inhale, I'm fine.
So you're enjoying your cigars these days?
I'm trying to quit.
Oh,
I'm trying to. When I get this surgery on my nose done, I'm going to go back to smoking a pipe.
You know,
That's very relaxing to me.
when are we going to get together for lunch? You said we should get together for lunch sometime.
Yeah, well, I see you around.
Yeah, but
I see you around.
you know,
yeah.
I don't wear distance glasses, so sometimes I don't see people. The next time you see me around, we should go to, I like to go eat at the Cambridge Hospital. I like their
Yeah.
cafeteria.
Yeah, their food is good. I've had them before, but their food is good.
But I mean, Leonard Nimoy died. They made a big deal about his smoking. He hadn't smoked in 30 years. He got COPD. He died at the age of 83 of, I think, a heart attack. You know, they blame everything on smoking, you know, and I don't know. Listen, I've been getting my cigars at Levitt and Pierce.
Yeah, me too.
I have a particular cigar I
I
like.
get the Kentucky Cheroots.
Oh, you get the
I
cheroots.
smoke them. And those are the same cigars that Clint Eastwood smoked in his spaghetti western.
Is that right?
Yeah.
They're a small cigar.
No. I get them. They're long cigars.
I see.
But I get them and I have to cut them in half.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, those are the only cigars that you can cut in half.
Really?
Kentucky Cheroot.
I've been getting a cigar there that I like a lot. It has a little chocolate flavor. It's it's expensive. I mean, it's well, not real expensive, but it's about $5.50 a cigar.
Well, good treat.
Oh, I think so. When I smoke a cigar, it's like a nice calm dream. I'm very calm. I can take whatever anybody says. I can really enjoy myself. You can really relish a cigar. You know that?
Yeah.
You can relish a cigar and you can relish a pipe, but a pipe is a lot of trouble. You got to keep lighting it and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's worth it. I got a nice Zippo. Lighter.
Have you had that a long time? The Zippo?
No, I haven't. I had one before it. I know they're supposed to last a lifetime, but something happened to it. It just wasn't working. They tried to fix it at Levitt.
Oh, really?
But now I got another one that I've had maybe about a year.
Did you get it at Levitt and Pierce?
Oh, yes. I wouldn't buy my smoking stuff anywhere else.
All right, Levitt and Pierce, Harvard Square. Jim, did you have a nice Thanksgiving?
They all know me there.
Did you have a nice Thanksgiving?
It was I could have, Steve, but I didn't feel like being around a lot of people. That's why I chose not to.
Oh, okay. Well, that's cool too.
My sisters.
You didn't go to your sister's house?
No, I could have. They were having duck and everything.
But you just decided to relax and chill, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
just stay at home.
That's good.
Yeah.
And did you give thanks on Thanksgiving?
The Sunday before that, I went to a Baptist church in Central Square.
Yeah.
And it was really nice. I mean, I liked the singing, I liked the sermon, and I didn't have any money to put in we used to call it the poor box.
Yeah.
But I gave him a silver ring with a cross engraved on it.
Well, that's certainly nice. That's
Yeah.
certainly nice.
Well, he was a nice guy. He had me introduce myself because I was new there.
Yeah.
And what I was thankful for, you know.
Was that the Union Baptist Church?
It's on the corner of River Street and Western Ave.
Really, River and Western, huh?
Yeah, you know where the bus stop is, 91 and 83?
Oh yeah,
directly
sure.
in front of it, that church.
That big church there?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a big church, yeah. Yeah, I've been there.
But there wasn't hardly anybody in there.
Well, you know, that's the way people are these days. Listen, Jim, I want to get to my smoker of the week. Thank you very much.
Check out Andy Griffith and check out Rob Zombie, 31.
Oh, right,
Okay.
right. I got that. Jim, thanks for calling. You really helped me out. It's nice to have some, really nice, good, loyal viewers out there. And I'm glad Jim is enjoying his cigars. I think tobacco is especially cigars, are a real nice treat. And as Mark Twain says, at least for him, it didn't have any unhealthy consequences. Well, I'm going to try to get to my smoker of the week here. And let's see if we can get her up here. Female smoker of the week. Let's see. If you guys will bear with me. Oh, here we go, I think. Whoop. Not very big, but you really can't see her very well. And you can't see the cigarette hardly at all, at least if your eyes are like mine. But believe it or not, this is Barack Obama's daughter, Malia Obama. And I believe this is at some Harvard event. And someone took a video and Malia was enjoying a cigarette and also enjoying the company of a young fellow. It's very heartening to see that even someone as close to President Obama, who of course was very, very hard on us smokers and very, very hard on tobacco, has a mind of her own, you know, and can see things in proportion and is not averse to smoking a cigarette from time to time and unabashedly enjoying it. So for all of us smokers, you know, I think this gives us hope that these tough times will eventually come to an end. And once again, people will see that, you know, tobacco is not the great evil that it has been depicted in the last 50 years or 60 years, but really something more like what the American Indian thought of it. Thanks for watching the smoking section. Hope you tune in next week, 7 p.m. Good night.